So this episode will be a little bit different. We're actually going to look at an old podcast that I did from a couple of years ago where I interviewed Olympic marathoner Ryan Hall. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. How's it going, runners? My name is Justin Thompson. I'm your average running PT, and I help the average runner achieve their own personal elite status. If that's something you guys are into, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button and click the bell so you guys know when the next video comes out. So this week's a little bit different. I ended up being a little bit busy this week, so I'm not able to record an actual video. So I'm doing a quick little intro and then letting you guys look at and listen to an old podcast episode that I did with Olympic marathoner Ryan Hall. And you may be thinking, how is a interview with an elite Olympic marathoner going to be relevant to the average runner? And the truth is, this entire episode, the main word that we kind of talk about is courage. And Ryan Hall absolutely embodied courage to me. And I think that every runner needs to have some level of courage and some level of saying that I'm going to be willing to try something. And he was definitely that. I know I learned a lot from talking with him, and it's really helped me in my running. So I hope that you guys will gain a little bit of insight into, the kind of courage it takes to just try and to push yourself just a little bit more. Now, this podcast episode was recorded about 2 years ago, so it's a little bit dated, but all the information in it is still relevant. The only thing that might kind of date it would be that at the very end we kind of talk about his book that is about to be released at that time, but has now been released for about a year and a half or so. So otherwise, all this information is still really relevant to you. Now, I don't have any video to go with it, but I'll let you guys look at my new logo while this is running. But how I recommend listening to this would be probably just turn it on and let it go while you're on your commute to work or out on a run. So that's it. Let's go ahead, jump into this podcast episode, and let me know what you guys think at the end. So head on out there, seek your elite. God bless, and I'll see you guys next time. All right, so welcome to this episode of the Athlete for Life podcast. I am joined by none other than Ryan Hall. Ryan is an Olympian. He's won the Marathon Olympic Trials. He was the champion in the Olympic Trials Marathon. He set the pace for the fastest Boston Marathon ever, at least for about half of it, and went on to run a 2:04:58, which is the fastest American marathon. Unfortunately, it's not an official record because of the nature of the Boston course, but it's still pretty awesome nonetheless. He also holds the American record for the half marathon, and he's completed the World Marathon Challenge. And on top of all, he's completed the World Marathon Challenge. And on top of all of that, on top of all of the endurance accolades, he can deadlift 400 pounds. So, Ryan, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. And, today I want to maybe talk a little bit less about the accomplishments and more about kind of the times in between, like 2:04 marathon and 400-pound deadlift, and I know that some of those times were not the smoothest journey along the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
So again, thank you so much for taking time. It's absolutely an honor.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on your show.
So, first of all, I have to let you know, since runner ever. Okay. So if I feel like, if it seems like I'm stumbling over words, it's because it's kind of like a little starstruck moment here. Okay.
It's all good.
All right.
but the thing is, even back in that time, it wasn't necessarily all of the accomplishments that made you my favorite runner. Obviously there was all of that you did that made you a lot of people's favorite, or a lot of people really admired you because of your athletic ability. But for me, I think if there's one word that kind of describes Ryan Hall, at least to me, there's a lot of words that describe you and the things that you've done. But for me, the word that comes to mind is courage. And, I want to talk courage. And, I want to talk a little bit about that word today, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So first of all, there may be some people out there that don't know who you are. If they don't, then they need to. But I want to just kind of take it back to the beginning. So I gave a little bit of your professional running career, but where did it all start? I mean, first of all, how much courage did it take for you as a teenager to decide that's a big old lake that I feel like I just have to run around? That's kind of the beginning of the story, right?
Yeah, I always liked trying things that I wasn't sure if I could do it or not. So, and even though at that time, I was 5 foot tall, 99 pounds, and like practicing like crazy, throwing my arm out against a tent that my dad had put up in the backyard for me to practice pitching against, and getting nowhere with it, just getting hammered out there on the baseball field or sitting bench in basketball. So yeah, it was just one day, I was going down to a basketball game in which I was not going to be playing in, but I'd be watching from the sidelines. And I felt like God was just kind of inspiring me to try and run around the lake in Big Bear, which is, like you mentioned, 15 miles around it. And I would say that definitely took a little bit of courage to try and attempt that, having never done a traditional run before. I'd run the mile in PE class, but that was about the extent of my running experience. So it was definitely kind of a big leap. And I think that is probably a word that I would hope would be a little bit of my legacy from my running career, is not being afraid to get out there and try, and showing people that, like, hey, it doesn't work out a lot of the time. Like, I failed a lot more than I succeeded, but when you succeed, when you try, when you take that leap and it works out, it's worth all the failures along the way,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And is it true that you ran that 15 miles in basketball shoes?
Yes, that was a bad call. I had blisters, and I was my feet were in a lot of pain after that one. I was like, this is why they made running shoes. It turns out they're a little different than basketball shoes. Yeah, basketball shoes, basketball shorts, and I was fully in basketball mode at the time. So I wasn't aware about. It took me years and years before I'd wear the short shorts that runners like to wear.
Oh yeah.
Basketball mode at the time, so I wasn't aware about. It took me years and years before I'd wear the short shorts that runners like to wear.
Oh yeah. Now, what was it that kind of? Now you mentioned it for a second, but what really inspired you to make that run?
I think it was just kind of like a seed of curiosity that God put inside me. One thing it was too is I had run, like I mentioned before, the mile in PE, and I was good at it. Like I remember at one time I lapped my friend 4 times. So I finished the mile run before he finished one lap in PE class. And so like I had a little bit of natural ability. I thought I was really, really good, but like turns out I wasn't even close to how good my wife now it was at that same age, So I wasn't in actuality like a super freak, but the choice is yours. And I'm really glad they didn't force me to do it, because if he'd forced me to do it, I would have given up at that first hard moment that I had in my career, and all the subsequent hard moments I had. I would have never made it through it. if I was doing it for him and not because I wanted to be out there. I wanted to be the one doing it. So, yeah, it was that after that first 50-mile run on the lake, I felt like God was telling me that I'd one day run with the best runners in the world, and he'd give me that gift and that opportunity so that I could serve and help and love other people along the way, and as a direct result of running. So it took me, years and years to figure out how you can actually help people through running, but there are some very tangible ways that runners can change lives all over the world through, signing up for a marathon and running a race.
Yeah, and I definitely want to talk about that a little bit here in just a little bit. But for those that don't know, your wife, Sarah Hall, is also a seriously elite runner, and obviously she's extremely fast. Now, you made it sound like, was she actually faster than you at that age? At the mile?
She was, yeah. She was running the mile. I don't remember exact time, but it was like low 5 minutes when she was in 8th grade, and I was like 5:32. So she was well ahead of me at that point.
Oh my goodness. That's awesome.
I'm just glad that we didn't go to the same school, because if we would have, I probably would have never attempted to run, because I would have not thought I actually had any talent.
You would have quit right there.
Yeah, it would have been over before it started.
All right. Well, I want to fast forward a little bit, and I want to actually take it to that.
Yeah, it would have been over before it started.
All right. Well, I want to fast forward a little bit, and I want to actually take it to that Boston Marathon that was kind of blew everybody's mind. And it was 2011 Boston Marathon. And as I mentioned before, you set the pace, and you took it out at pretty much, it was a world record pace for the marathon. And the winner actually ended up beating the world record time, but as I mentioned before, the course doesn't consider it a world record attempt just because of the nature of the point-to-point course. But were you scared at any moment whenever you were leading the way, going at that pace? Again, kind of going back to this word courage, and you mentioned, were you ever scared at any moment during that race that, oh, what am I doing? What in the world? Why am I up here leading this incredible group of runners at this pace on this course?
Yeah. To be totally honest, I don't remember being scared. I just remember being excited. I think part of that was because I had trained for that moment for my entire running career, for however long it was leading up to that, 15 years leading up to that. Like, I always loved to go to the front. I always loved to push the pace. I felt comfortable in the front, So that was actually where I would run my best, was at the front of races, and trying to make it a fast race is kind of what makes me come alive when I'm racing. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't say I was necessarily fearful, but there was a moment a month prior to that. I ran the New York City Half Marathon. Months prior to that, I ran the New York City Half Marathon. Going into it, I was having great workouts up here in Flagstaff, Arizona, and was like really confident. I was thinking maybe I could break my own American record in the half marathon. I was like feeling that good, And I go to New York, and I just completely bombed it. To this day, I couldn't tell you exactly what my time was. I think it's somewhere in the 65-minute range. Oh, wow. Which, you're thinking, like, that's like, 5 to 6 minutes slower than my PR in the half marathon, which is substantial for an elite runner, Yeah. And also, too, with the marathon coming up a month later, you're like, if I can't run one half in 65 minutes, how am I going to run two back-to-back halves in 63 minutes or 62 minutes or whatever, And I remember being seriously discouraged right after that race, because I didn't know what went wrong. Like, I had no explanation. Like, my training been going great. I was feeling good. Like, everything, like, that had me back from the finish line at Battery Park, and walked all the way back to our hotel down by Central Park, which is like a 4-mile walk. And I was just so bummed out and just trying to figure out what's going wrong. And I was just getting, like, very, like, going deep down inside myself, trying to figure this thing out. And what I found was I was actually making things worse because I wasn't focused on where I was going. I was focused on like what's just happened. I was focused on something that was already in the past, you know? And so, you know, the next morning I woke up and I got to get excited for Boston. And like, the truth of the matter is, even if I just had a terrible race, like I'm still in good shape. I'm still going to go give this a good swing in Boston. But I would say that made me a little bit hesitant to go out so hard at Boston. If you're like, man, my last half marathon a month ago was 65 minutes. And then you're going out. I think we came through the half just under 62 minutes or somewhere right in that region. And Boston, if you're like, man, my last half marathon a month ago was 65 minutes. And then you're going out. I think we came through the half just under 62 minutes or somewhere right in that region. And so, you know, I came through the half like 3 minutes faster than I'd raced it. But that's also a little bit of the nature of marathon running. Everyone's a little bit different, but oftentimes when you're racing and you're really marathon fit, your half marathon actually won't go well at all. And that can actually be a good sign that you're in the right kind of shape. Marathon fitness and shape is different than half marathon fitness. So I was a little bit hesitant, but when I was standing on the starting line in Hopkinton and I saw the flag blowing directly the direction we were going to be running, I just had a big smile on my face. And I remember I was reflecting on a conversation I had with Bill Rogers, and he's like, yeah, about once every 10 years, we get a wicked tailwind on the course. You can run fast. I'm not letting 1 mile go by that I'm not hammering out in front and pushing the pace, because I knew that, you know, we had a chance to do something really special that day with the conditions in the course. So kind of put the past behind me and just got excited with every mile. And I looked down and see my split, even though it was way faster than I thought I should be running or even had planned on running. I took that as a good sign. Oh man, I'm feeling really good. Now I'm way ahead of schedule. I'm bagging time. And literally later on in the race, I remember thinking like, just break 5 minutes for the next mile. And, you know, to run 2:04, you have to average like, 2:04.58, I think averages out to 4:45 pace.
Mm-hmm.
But towards the end, I was just like, just get under 5 minutes, just get under 5 minutes. That bagged so much time early on. And it just kind of created this snowball of momentum that was just building as the race was going on. So, you know, how that I'm coaching athletes, that's what I try to tell them as well. Like, we need to find a way to get really excited out there and to feel like you're building momentum as this race is going on, because you can ride that energy and that momentum to incredible levels, to the point to where you're doing something that you once thought was impossible.
Yeah, I remember watching that race and just being like, what in the world? First of all, again, you're my favorite runner at that time, and it's just like, I'm watching this and I'm seeing, is he gonna blow up? Is he gonna, what's even gonna happen in this race? Because nobody runs this course this fast. And it was amazing to see, you know, obviously the times of everybody that day, and to see you going under 205 for the full length of it. It was just incredible. And like I said, it just seemed to me that it just showed so much courage to lead from the front all the time. And I know that you said that was your nature. That was who you were. That's what you did. And that's why that word always comes to mind when I think of you. So, and you know, go ahead.
I think, you know, a lot of where that comes from, that courage to be able to go out there and push from the front, is you have to not be afraid to blow up. You have to be very okay with failure. You have to have experienced failure after failure after failure and know that I can pick myself up after I fall down. And that's a process of learning that took me years and years and years. You know, like when I was like 12 years old, I wasn't like a little kid, but if I struck out, like I would start crying afterwards. Like that's how hard I took failure. And I had to get to this point where I actually saw failure as a good thing, as a way for me to get to my full potential. So as my mindset shifted, then it enabled me to like really take some risks. And having been through so much failure throughout my career, I knew that like it's gonna suck, it's gonna hurt, I'm be really bummed out, but I know I can pick myself up and keep going forward because I've done it time and time and time and time again. So I think that's really where courage comes from. Is you got to be not afraid of the worst case scenario. Obviously, you know, you're not thinking the worst case scenario is going to happen, but it probably will at some point. You know, like if you're putting yourself out there over and over again, you're superhuman if you don't experience some really hard failure along the way. That's just part of the cost of maximizing what's inside you. And you know, as I reflect back on Boston, I think it was an amazing sensation to cross the finish line and see the time on the clock. And I remember just being so stoked. I felt like I won the race, even though I was like almost 2 minutes back from the winner, you know. And here, like, I could have been really bummed out being like, what the heck, like this race has been going on for 110 years and I just ran faster than anyone's ever run on this course and I finished fourth, you know. But that wasn't my perspective at all. It was more like I felt like I kind of captured the true meaning of sport, which in my mind is not to beat people or to run faster than other people, but it's to maximize what God's put inside of you, maximizing your own potential. Like, I think that's the beauty of sport right there. Because the truth of the matter is only one guy can win the race, you know? Like, I think that's the beauty of sport right there. Because the truth of the matter is only one guy can win the race, you know? And like, we might sell this line in our society that if you believe and you work hard enough, you can accomplish whatever you want. But that's just simply not true. I mean, there's one guy who's going to win the gold medal, you know? So there can be a million kids out there that watch the Olympics and they're like, one day I'm going to do that. And it doesn't matter how hard they work, how, you know, much they believe. Only one person gets to live that. But the great thing about going after like this thing of just, I'm going to maximize, I'm going to see what's inside me. Everyone can experience that. That's not like one person gets to experience it. So it's just a really cool moment for me to live that and be like, man, I finally did what I think I finally found out what was inside me.
I think that's such a really any kind of any endeavor in life is, you know, to, even if you don't win, right, if you gave it everything that you had, then you have nothing to be ashamed of or nothing to be to you know, not have pride in what you've done. So I think that's such an important lesson for everybody, especially like young kids. Like you said, every kid wants to win the gold medal, but only one of them will. And so as long as they know that they put everything they had out there and they gave it every effort to win that gold medal, then they have to be happy. You've got to be happy with that.
Yeah, that's got to be the definition of success, not standing on top of the podium, because that's just, it's not going to happen for everyone in podium, because that's just, it's not going to happen for everyone. And I don't like leading people astray, you know, being like, oh yeah, you can win the gold medal, because like truth is like, I don't know if you can win the gold medal. That's like way outside of my control, you know. And even as an athlete, like I can't control how good everyone else gets. I can't control that, you know, 3 other guys ran faster than I did that day. All I can control is my own heart and trying to maximize what I have, get 100% of myself on the day of whatever I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, not only have you showed courage with your athletic abilities, but you used your platform as a successful high-level athlete as a place to kind of openly speak about faith, and you also used your platform, as you mentioned before, to help other people. That's not easy to do as as an elite athlete or as just a normal person to have that courage to put yourself out there, because I don't know what kind of feedback you got from the whole fan, all the fans and all that kind of stuff, when things kind of started to come off, when the wheels started to come off of the running career. But did you ever have anybody that were saying, where's God now kind of things?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, to be honest, just because early on in my running career, I remember going on in high school and see my name on there. I was like, oh, that's so cool. They're talking about me. And I started reading some of the comments, and like most of them were positive, but then there are some people who are like, this guy's not the real deal, whatever. And it's funny. It's like, those are the thoughts that those are the things I remembered about that message board, And so I realized early on that I could not read I had no interest in the criticism of other people. My only interest was in being authentic and in pleasing God in everything that I did. And so that's how I lived. So from that point on, I never went on a message board. I didn't read any articles about me, even the ones that were and most of them were really positive articles, So I wouldn't read that stuff either. I read nothing about me. I would hear stuff secondhand from people doing interviews, so what did you think about this person saying this? I'm like, I had no idea they said that until they told me. But secondhand from people doing interviews, so what did you think about this person saying this? I'm like, I had no idea they said that until they told me. But I also have grace for the critic as well. I love the critic as much as I love the super fan, so like I said, my goal is just always to be authentic and real and share that with people who wanted to follow along and were interested in my story. So, there was a little bit of a time when I was going into the 2012 Olympics, and, I was going with God as my coach. And actually, the Boston Marathon, when I ran 2:04, that was the first marathon I did with God as my coach. And so I did feel a little bit of pressure. You're doing interviews on CNN and stuff. And they're being like, well, if you win, I think a lot of people are going to want to know about your coach. And I'm like, yeah, always trying to connect with him, trying to get wisdom from him, and living out of that, and then kind of just letting the cards fall how they're going to fall, and letting people see me how they see me, And so I've always been okay with critics, but I wouldn't say I, actively am, reading what they're saying. Most of the time I just have no idea, just because it's really not important to me. Making those people happy, or their opinions of me just don't. It just doesn't really. It's not something I'm actively looking at.
Yeah, definitely, and that's so hard to do, to have that kind of self-control, though, to not want to know what people are saying. And because I was the same way. I played college soccer, and I played college soccer, and whenever I played high school soccer, I went on the message boards and all that kind of stuff. And there were people talking about we won some state championships when I was in high school, and one of the people that was on there, everything was like, oh, what an awesome game, because we won the game with 8 seconds left or something like that. And everybody was saying, what an awesome game. But the one comment I always remember was, that wasn't real soccer. It was just a game of ping pong and then one great strike. And I was like, what? Come on. It was, because it was literally it was a 1-0 game, and that one goal was with 8 seconds left. So
yeah, it's crazy how those negative comments stay with you, and I don't think those are good fuel. I know a lot of athletes use that in fuel for my training. I think that's a not as good of a fuel as love is, actually. I don't know if you've ever done the experiment where you put out your hand, and then someone tells you, like, think about someone you like really hate or that you don't like at all, and then like you try and resist them pushing down your hand, and then they see how strong you are, and then you do the same thing, but they tell you, like, think about someone you really love, and you're like way stronger. And I think that just shows like our bodies are meant to be motivated by love, not by trying to prove someone wrong or hating someone or trying to beat someone. Like, I think those can be motivators, yes, but I would argue it's not as strong of a motivator, not as effective as a motivator as love is.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right, I'm going to move forward a little bit now. You retired from running in move forward a little bit now. You retired from running in, it was 2016, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of came out of retirement to do the World Marathon Challenge. So
yeah.
What was the reason behind wanting to do this particular event?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I still remember I was in the gym, I was doing some toe raises, and I remember my phone buzzed, and I got a text from my friend who's the pastor at the Dream Center in Los Angeles, Pastor Matthew Barnett. And he texted me, he's like, hey, I'm doing this crazy challenge, like 7 marathons in 7 days on 7 continents. And there's something inside me that just kind of jumped. Like, similar, actually, it is kind of cool. It's kind of full circle for me. Like, similar to that moment I had when I was 13 going down to the basketball game, looking out over the lake, like where something just jumped inside me, like a little spark, like, oh, I want to try and run around the lake. It's kind of the same thing with this marathon challenge, the same kind of feeling in my heart was just like, this makes no sense. I hate to run right now, like, in all honesty. Like, I was into lifting and stuff, but I tried to run as little as possible. Like, that was always my goal. And yet, like, something about this text and this challenge just kind of grabbed me. And I think it grabbed me for a number of reasons, you know, one of which, like, I got an opportunity to speak at the Dream Center and just love what they're doing down there in LA, you know, helping get people off the streets, get them back on their feet, get them reintegrated into society. The work they're doing down there is just amazing. So a big part of that was like, anything I can do to support Pastor Matthew, to support the Dream Center, like, I would love to do. And this is just like epic way to do it, you know? So I texted him back and I was like, oh man, that sounds amazing. Like, if you want company, let me exchange things out. And I went home and I told Sarah what I just signed up for, and she was not super happy with me for not talking to her about it first, but she eventually warmed up to the idea. But the problem was, like I was saying, I was honestly, like, didn't like to run at all, just because the way things ended, like, in my career, was just kind of 4 years of injury after injury, which started, you know, actually even before the 2012 Olympic trials when I got plantar fasciitis, and that just kind of was one injury to one injury, just this vicious cycle. And then what really caused me to retire was battling years and years of, like, really extreme fatigue, to the point to where if I went out and ran and tried to go 30 minutes, like, I'd jog for like 15 minutes out and then I'd have to walk back, and I just felt like my body just weighed 1,000,000 pounds and just felt so weak, and like there was just something really wrong with my body. And I think, you know, looking so weak and like there was just something really wrong with my body. And I think, you know, looking back on it now, it's just my body's way of saying, hey, like, we've given you everything we could give you for the last 20 years of your running career, and there's nothing left, you know? And so I got to that point and I knew that was the end of my journey, you know? So when I stopped running, I didn't have any desire to do ultras or to run at all. So taking on this challenge, I was like, beforehand, like 6 months before, like, well, I can go about this a couple different ways. Either I can hate my life for the next 6 months and like try to really train for this thing and really do a good job, like, physically, or I can just like wing it and not train for it and then have a pretty painful week of running. So I opted for the painful week of running, which I still stand behind that decision. I think it was the right call because it made it even more of an epic challenge. So leading up to the World Marathon Challenge, so we're gonna have to run, I believe it's 182 miles for that entire week, so 26.2 miles 7 days in a row. And leading up to that, my highest mileage week was right like about 25 miles, with my longest run being 8 miles leading up to that.
That is definitely winging it, man.
But so I had no idea what to expect when I was out there. I mean, I was still like eating really well, sleeping well, training super hard in the gym, but I also put on about 50 pounds,
Right.
Most of which was muscle, not all of it. But so my body just felt completely different when I'd run. I felt like I was like a big giant elephant, like hammering the ground super hard over and over again. And I could not run fast at all. Like Sarah dropped me on her easy days, and just running was very different. You know, I had a completely different body. So some people might be like, yeah, whatever, you ran 204, but like this was not 204 Ryan. Like this was like regular guy Ryan. So going out there on the challenge, I was nervous. I was like, I have no idea if I can even run one marathon, let alone 7. But I just knew that, you know, the key to accomplishing really hard things is just to not look too far down the road. Oftentimes, like for me, the most scary point of a marathon was actually on the starting line. So I'm thinking about how the heck am I going to get to 25 miles at 4:45 per mile? Like I can't like think about that in my mind without like feeling pain in my body and just like being like, I don't see how I can do that. You know, like just the sense of overwhelming is oftentimes worse than actually being in the middle of the challenge, you know? So I just had to keep reminding myself, like, at the end of the day, this is about putting one foot in front of the other over and over and over again, and always believing you can take one more step. There's one more step there. So that's kind of what I did. And I ran in my typical fashion. I would always go out like basically as hard as I could. Like my line of thinking was the sooner I get this done, the less time I'll be out there. So I'd always go out hard and just die a lot of time. But it was interesting. My first one in Antarctica, I forget what my time was. It was like 3:24 or something like that. So nothing to write home about, you know, more than an hour off my personal best. But then
but in Antarctica, wasn't it so cold there?
Yeah, you know, they were reporting it being really cold, but it must have been a dry cold because I didn't feel super cold at all. Like I was wearing what I'd wear if I was just training in the mountains in the wintertime, like full tights, long sleeve shirt, full of mountains all around us and stuff. That was by far my favorite.
Sweet.
But as the week was going on, I was actually getting in better and better shape, which is pretty amazing considering the only time we had to sleep was on the airplane. So throughout this whole week, we had 2 nights we got to spend in the hotel. All the other nights were spent on the airplane. So we're not sleeping much. We're running an insane amount, and yet my body was actually getting stronger and stronger. So my fastest marathon was day 5 in Morocco. I ran 3:03 or something like that. So, and I was actually starting to get excited, and running was starting to feel better. And I was like, man, I'm going to roll these last 2. But unfortunately on that day in Morocco after the race, I was kind of limping a little bit, and I had something going on my hip. I didn't, you know, with running, you can run through a lot of little niggles. So I was just hoping that's just going to limping a little bit. And I had something going on my hip. I didn't, you know, with running, you can run through a lot of little niggles. So I was just hoping that's just going to be like some little thing I could just run through, no big deal. But it turned into like a full-blown big-time issue that I was limping through the next 2 marathons and limping. My last marathon in Sydney took 5.5 hours,
Oh, wow.
which was crazy to me. Like I have more respect for 5-hour marathoners than I do for 2:10 marathoners. Like I think that's way harder to be running for 5 hours than it is to run hard for 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But my hip was really bad. Like when I got up off the airplane in Sydney, I could barely walk on it. So I was like, this is going to be a long night. But you've run 6 marathons in a row. You have one left. You're like, man, I'm going to get through this. Like, I don't care if I have to cut my leg off, you know, finish this thing. So it was just a really neat experience for me for a number of reasons. But one of which was like I didn't get to end my career professionally how I wanted to end it. I always picture myself ending on a good note, having a good last marathon, and then coming to the finish line, taking my shoes off, and leaving them on the finish line. I kind of stole that from wrestlers who, when they wrestle their last match, they take off their shoes, they leave them on the mat, and they walk off. And I just love that kind of symbolism. You know, it's kind of like saying thank you to the sport, thank you to everyone who supported you. You've given everything you could possibly give, and now it's time to walk into a new season of life. And so in Sydney, that's what I did. It took forever to get to the finish line, but by the time I got there, you know, I gingerly got down on my knees, took my shoes off, put them on the finish line, walked away, never looked back, and it just gave me a real sense of closure. And I remember feeling like actually pretty emotional as I was walking away from the finish line. So I think I had a little bit of like, I don't know, just undealt with stuff with how things ended with my running and not getting to say goodbye to the sport that had treated me so well and I loved so much and I devoted my life to for 20 years. And so in that moment, walking away, I felt like a little bit like walking away from the gravesite, you know. It's like, it's kind of sad to like say goodbye to that season of my life, but I knew like that season was over. Now it's time to walk into something new. So it gave me a lot of closure that I didn't even really honestly know that I needed.
Yeah. So walking into something new now, your fitness goals are a little different at this point. Tell us a little bit about kind of what you're trying with all of your weight training and all of that.
Yeah, it's been super fun. Like, I think something that's helped me to transition from professional running is staying true to who I am. And what I loved about running was pushing myself, seeing what I could do. And I also love the improvement aspect of it. You know, I love seeing growth. I love getting faster. And so, you know, getting into weight training, it was so easy to see improvement because I was so weak. Like, I could only bench, like, not even my body weight, which was 140 pounds at the time. Same with like squatting, deadlifting. I was like hard pressed to do my body weight of 140 pounds. So I kind of had nowhere to go but up from there. And I just loved it. I love being able to go hard every single day. Because in running, you can only go hard 3 days a week. You know, the other days you got to just go easy and let your body absorb the hard work you're putting in, because you're hitting the same system over every single day. Because in running, you can only go hard 3 days a week. You know, the other days you got to just go easy and let your body absorb the hard work you're putting in, because you're hitting the same system over and over and over again. Right. Whereas when you're weight training, you're hitting different muscle groups every single day. So I'm not going hard, you know, on my biceps or whatever every day. I'm only going hard like 2 days a week, but I'm going hard every day, hitting a different muscle group. So I just love pushing myself. And even this thing of like failure, like I just love getting to the point to where I couldn't move weight and I had to like set it down and I'd fail. Because I knew like that failure was what I needed to do to get stronger. So, you know, originally when I retired, I set a goal to be able to, I wanted to bench 300, deadlift 300 and squat 300 pounds, which I thought would take me like 10 years to do, you know. But just with the power of consistency, you know, like I just get in the gym every single, and that consistency just paid off big time. So, you know, now 3 years later, I can bench 310 and squat 365 and then deadlift 405. So, you know, I've already exceeded my goals and kind of set new goals for myself. I really want to be able to bench 405, which is 4 plates, 445 plates, by the time I'm 40 years old, which is in 4 years. So, just looking to make little improvements, you know, get 25 pounds a year for the next 4 years and get up over 400. I think would be really exciting for the bench, get my deadlift over 500, get my squat over 400 as well. And it's just a fun outlet for me. And then also, you know, I'm surrounded by girls in my house. We adopted 4 girls from Ethiopia in 2016. So it's kind of a good outlet for me. And then also, you know, I'm surrounded by girls in my house. We adopted 4 girls from Ethiopia in 2016. And so it's kind of a good outlet for me to get to do some grunting in the gym and get out some testosterone as well. So it's been a really good, healthy kind of hobby for me. But really my focus is, on being a good father, good husband to my wife, good coach to my wife. And then we moved to Flagstaff, Arizona in the last year, and I've started a pro running team up here. So that's been super fun, because I think when I was on my journey, I was kind of thinking about like this was to see how good I could get, But now that I'm on the other side of my journey, I'm realizing a lot of the lessons I learned were to pass on to other people and to help other people. And so now training philosophy that got me to accomplish the things I got to accomplish in my career. So I'm really excited about the new team and seeing where that leads.
That's awesome. Talking about courage, I mean, to adopt four girls they're from Ethiopia, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that obviously takes some courage, and I think that just kind of epitomizes who you are and how you want to help as many people as you can, and to give these four girls a home where I just know they'll be loved, and it's awesome, man. It's really, really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So before we close out, tell me a little bit about your book that you're writing. That's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So before we close out, tell me a little bit about your book that you're writing that you've been editing for a little while. What's the progress, and when do you expect it to come out?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this book. It was hugely therapeutic for me to write, for one thing, getting to sort back through my career and get to put down on paper everything that I've learned along the way, and get to share that with my kids, with my friends, with my family, with the extended running community, with the faith community, which if anyone who wants to read the book is really, really exciting for me. So, I wrote the whole thing myself. There's no ghostwriter or anything like that. So don't expect it to be like, author level. This is like runner writing. It's not my real job, but luckily, we have some great editors over at Zondervan that have been working hard on the manuscript. And I just got back the revised copy a couple days ago, and I'm going through and taking one last glance at it, and then it's off to the press and comes out in April. So yeah, we're really excited. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of it just shares my story. It's me going through my journey and pulling out the big lessons that I learned, and talking about the successes, the mistakes, everything along the way. And with the hope that I can help people on their journey as well.
Yeah. Well, I love your story, and I look forward to reading all the details and all of that whenever your book comes out. So I'm super excited. And again, Ryan, all right, man.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Justin. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good one, Ryan.
All right. You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So I want to thank Ryan Hall again for coming on the show. It was an absolute honor to be able to speak with him. And, I think what I want people to take away from this episode is that, you can't be afraid to fail. You have to have the courage to try and do hard things. And like I said, don't be afraid to fail. Life is kind of like a big series of failures, and Ryan definitely told us a little bit about that he definitely failed more times than he succeeded, yet he's known as one of the best marathoners in American history. So, that's kind of the lesson that I want people to take away, is that if you can be happy with the if you can be happy with the effort that you put forth,
not everybody's going to stand on top of the podium. Not everybody's going to get first place. Only one guy can get first place. But if you can be happy with the effort that you gave, then that is truly the definition of success. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and look forward to the next one.